When I moved to Africa after growing up in the West, I thought I was ready. I thought moving to Africa would be my liberation. But it ended up being my biggest lesson in unlearning. I have to admit, I came with a westernized mindset, confidence, and even a little arrogance. And Africa, Africa humbled me.
Welcome to Manosphere Highlights Daily. This one's for the passport bros, specifically the ones who are thinking about bringing their wives or girlfriends back to the West. Listen, don't do it, and don't just take my word for it. Today, we're reacting to a woman who did the reverse. She was born and raised in Germany, but then moved back to Ethiopia. And what she experienced? Pure culture shock, but in the best way. She lists 5 challenges she faced, but we're going to highlight the biggest one that you need to pay attention to. Let's jump in. Now it's time for us to get into this and do what we gotta do. Because we many.
Now, let's start with the first challenge, and that is that your boundaries are not always respected when it comes to privacy. You know, growing up in Germany, which is a quite individualistic society, people really value privacy. They don't like it when you come to their home without announcement. Being born and raised in Germany, even I myself, despite being raised in an Ethiopian household, I enjoyed, valued, and also respected this level of privacy a lot. That means I would never go to somebody else's home without notice. And so when I moved to Ethiopia, that was a whole different story. I was tested over and over again. And at first it made me so uncomfortable. Imagine, even when family members, I have a brother, for instance, who lives in Addis Ababa. And one time it was a Sunday morning and my plan was to work, because I work 24/7 basically. And so he pulled up with the whole gang, came with his 3 children, with his wife, with his sister-in-law. In total, they were like around 10 people. I was overwhelmed. I just got out of bed and they were already knocking on the gate, and that was so unusual for me. And I will be honest with you, I didn't like that. And I didn't know how to explain to him that I would like to be informed when they decide to come over to my place, right? I must admit I was too ashamed and not confident enough to tell him that this makes me feel uncomfortable. And that is also because he's my bigger brother and I respect him a lot. And so I played it cool. I just asked him what's going on. And he was like, "What do you mean what's going on? It's Sunday, get ready, we're going to church." And I was like, "No, please." I believe in God, but I'm not the type of person that goes to church every Sunday. And so he forced me to step out of my comfort zone. And on top of feeling uncomfortable, he kind of forced me to get up and join them to church.
Now stop right there. Did you catch the gold? She said her family, her community, held her accountable. They were at her house first thing in the morning, dragging her to church, and she didn't like it. Why? Because it made her feel uncomfortable. Exactly. Accountability is uncomfortable. This right here is everything that's missing in the West. People here talk about being spiritual or religious, but nobody's living it. No structure, no pressure, no standard, just vibes and Instagram quotes. And definitely no big brother knocking at your door telling you to stop being lazy and come to church. She didn't want to go, but she went. Why? Because she had no choice. That's culture. That's community. Meanwhile, in the West, the average woman can do whatever she wants, however she wants, with 0 consequences. And if you even suggest accountability, you're labeled controlling or toxic. But now, listen to what happened after that church visit.
And so that's what I did. I got my kids ready. We went to church, and after church, we went to a beautiful restaurant to have breakfast together. And let me make it short. That day was one of the most beautiful days. It is so ingrained in my memory, the feelings that I felt. I don't really remember what exactly happened on that day, but it was a day full of love. It was a day that reminded me that there are way more important things in life than just work. And maybe I came to appreciate the quality time that I had with my family and friends who came unannounced, right? That I came to value them more because, they say you don't know what you got until it's gone. And so when I had to leave Ethiopia overnight because of a devastating genocidal war that broke out, that was targeting my specific ethnic group, the Tigrayans, I had to leave them behind. And I cried like a baby. I felt so bad for leaving them behind. And even though the war was at its very early stage and people were telling me, oh, you're leaving for nothing, it's not going to be so bad, all this gaslighting from people who were secretly supporting this war, deep down I knew that I'm not going to see my family for a very long time. And that is maybe why I cherish this moment so much today. And it also taught me that sometimes we are too focused on ourselves and busy with our own lives that we forget what is happening around of us, that we miss out the chance of building real connection with the people around us. And this is actually what truly matters in life, right? My mom always loves to remind me that the day we die, we are leaving with none of our riches, with none of our material things. And she's right. It doesn't matter how much money you make or how successful you are with your job. What truly matters, I believe, in the end is the connections that we build.
Boom. That's it. That's why men are cashing in their frequent flyer miles and taking their talents overseas. Not for just submissive women. No, it's the culture that produces those women. Cultures where connection, family, and values actually matter. In the West, it's all about flex culture. Get the bag, chase the clout, buy the Tesla, post the vacation. And meanwhile, people are miserable and alone. The irony? She had to leave the West to realize that the best parts of life have nothing to do with how much you spend and everything to do with who you spend it with. But here's the red flag. She had no choice there, just like she would have no choice adapting to Western norms if she came back. That same Ethiopian woman who wakes up for church with her family, bring her to New York or LA, and 6 months later she's on TikTok talking about my truth and how she's too independent to settle. That's not slander. That's how environments work.
How many souls we touched, how many people we inspired, how we helped others. And so, yeah, this is something I feel it has its benefits, right? The respect for boundaries and privacies in the Western societies. However, from my own experience, I feel that people are very disconnected from each other, or they have quite shallow relationships. I must say the connection that I built with my brother and the connection that my children were able to build with their cousins, right, with my brother's children, is only because he violated my boundaries of privacies. And I'm so grateful for that. In the 2 years that I lived in Addis Ababa, I saw my brother way more often than my other brothers who live in Germany as well in the past 10 years. Because even within family, there's this disconnection. Everyone is busy. You make it on Christmas, right? You feel responsible to show up on Christmas. But beyond that, maybe on special occasions like a birthday or a wedding. But that's so sad. And that is why my whole opinion and my mindset when it comes to privacy has kind of shifted. And I'm going to be honest with you, it wasn't always easy, especially in the beginning. I needed to adjust. I needed to understand the culture, right? Because despite being raised in an Ethiopian household, we would still kind of internalize this respect for boundaries and privacy. But after a while, it became normal. And even I started showing up at friends' house unannounced, just saying hello because I was passing by and I knew they will not see it as disrespectful. And whenever I passed by spontaneously at somebody else's home, it always turned out so beautiful.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Culture shock goes both ways. Yes, some men get frustrated with traditional cultures too, where marrying the girl means marrying her whole family. That's real. And yes, sometimes everyone wants to be in your business. But guess what? That's what a real community looks like. That's what makes people think twice before doing dumb things. In high-value relationships, you don't get to do whatever you want. And here's the final truth. If you want a high-quality woman, she can't just decide to be one in her 30s. She has to be raised that way, in an environment that keeps her grounded, keeps her focused, and holds her accountable. And if you remove her from that environment, don't be surprised when the woman changes. So for you passport bros, if you find something rare, valuable, and traditional, protect the environment that produced her. Because the minute you bring her back to the West, that church dress becomes fashion nova real quick.
Man, that's where we working. Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.